Okay, I think we will get started. Hello, thank you for joining us today for CHRA's webinar. This webinar is titled The 401k 411, Everything You Need to Know About Retirement Plans That No One Wants to Tell You. My name is Jill Rice, and I am a member of the CHRA Professional Development Committee. Please be aware that all participant lines will be muted during the session to provide the best sound quality. If you have any questions or any technical difficulties during the session, please use the Q&A feature as it will be monitored throughout the session. The Q&A feature can be found at the bottom of your screen. If you're still having technical difficulties, please email info@chra.com. If you cannot hear audio through your computer speakers, you can call in using the call-in number and meeting ID that was sent to you on your Zoom registration confirmation. Today's webinar will be recorded and will be available for download on our website shortly. We will share details with the registrants once it is available. Questions about the presentation content can also be entered into the Q&A feature. Questions will be answered by the presenter also at the end of the presentation or throughout. If you are SHRM or HRCI certified, this webinar is worth 1 hour of general HR credit by HRCI and 1 SHRM PDC toward your recertification. An email with the recertification IDs will be emailed to all attendees later today or tomorrow. So for today's webinar, our speakers are Andy Ingram and James Holland. Andy Ingram is a disruptor for the retirement industry. He relays eye-opening information to plan sponsor fiduciaries to start them down a relationship to build a relationship path built on trust, integrity, and transparency. As a retirement plan consultant, his focus is on helping businesses implement industry best practices while working within the structure of the retirement plan to provide individualized guidance and education to plan participants. He reforms the management of the investment portfolio to ensure its compliance and cost efficiency through 338 investment fiduciary guidance, one of the highest levels of retirement plan oversight available today. Andy has a team in place that is at the forefront of ERISA, DOL/IRS compliance. His team has the blueprint handed directly to them from the DOL. Together, they will guide and reform your plan to the best available solution for your company and its participants. Their solution is tailored, high-tech, and responsive at the plan and participant level. Their patented process enlightens, educates, and reforms your plan to the industry's best practices in order to reduce the burdens on business owners and HR professionals. Andy is also a 2003 graduate of Roanoke College, and he holds the Accredited Investment Fiduciary or AIF professional credential. James Holland is a partner, assistant compliance officer, and director of business development for MIRA. He is one of the 3 inventors of the Plan Analyzer, which is the only patented investment evaluation tool available in the industry. James also does expert consulting for ERISA litigation for both the Plaintiff's Bar and the Defense Counsel. He has spoken at dozens of SHRM events throughout the country. James and Mira also do extensive work with plan sponsors who have issues before the Department of Labor and the IRS. He is a 1990 graduate of Ohio Wesleyan University, where he received a bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Science in Economics Management, and holds an MBA from Jack Welch Institute. Now I'll hand it over to Andy and James.
Great. Jill, thank you so much. Appreciate everyone taking some time this morning. Again, Andy and I have been doing this together now for, I guess, almost 4 or 5 years in terms of different SHRM presentations. And with all the changes taking place within the space, and Andy's going to hit on a bunch of the secure stuff when he gets together, but we try to find a way to take the ERISA and the legalese out of it and try to put it more in terms of folks who are not pension geeks like Andy and myself. So hopefully this will help shed some light on that for you. And there we go. So where we want to start is obviously where the plan starts. So for those folks who have to have an audit done every year, who have more than 120 participating individuals, you're always asked for your determination letter. The auditor wants your determination letter. What is that? Well, when you try to start a 401k plan, You're going to tell the IRS you're going to do certain things and abide by certain guidelines. So they give you that determination letter. We call it the plan birth certificate. It's how the plan starts. You say, we're going to follow all the rules, and they're going to let you continue to have your tax qualified status. So when we do these in person, we usually pass out this form because, again, obviously with human resources, job openings are a big thing. So if you walked in and said, listen, we have this job, it takes you to understand all 75,000 pages of the tax code, one of the most complex laws ever written for retirement plans. It's going to take hundreds of hours, and you're going to be personally liable for all the things that go on. How many people are going to apply for the job? And we try to make light of it a little bit, even though it's a serious matter. But that's what happens when you get involved with running a retirement plan. There are certain expectations that the government puts in place that a lot of people are not realizing, that they've the depth and the breadth of the responsibilities and the liabilities. So hopefully we can shed some light on that for you this morning. For those who have a committee, okay, a retirement planning committee, which a lot of plans do now, which we obviously encourage to get as many different voices within the employer involved in the plan. Any of those folks who are on the committee, you are a fiduciary, either by the job function or default with regards to being on the committee and having some type of discretion or control. Well, some people volunteer and some people get volunteered to be on the committee. So for the folks who get volunteered, they might not, again, grasp the depth and the breadth of the responsibilities. So there's always a fiduciary acknowledgement letter. Here's a sample of one, and obviously Andy and I'd be happy to provide an actual copy for anyone who's interested, to make sure anyone who's on the committee reads it so they understand the role which they're taking. But then you can also document this as part of your prudent process, because we want the folks who are going to be in the committee not just to be there, but to be engaged, and this helps them get a better understanding of that role and responsibility. Andy and I reach out on a daily basis, as I'm sure you guys, your phones are ringing, and we are salespeople, no matter how you slice it. Yes, we're trying to providing some consultation and some education here, but on a daily basis, it's hard to remove the human aspect into what the reality is. And this is probably the biggest joke part is, again, when we're calling and trying to share that we have some information that we believe might benefit or enhance the plan and help protect you and the employee, that's not what you're hearing, because we don't know each other and this is the first we're speaking. What you hear is someone calling your baby ugly, and that's not what we're trying to do. Yes, we do believe there are some issues there, but the reason we're reaching out, and the reason most other people reach out, is because there is a potential for some areas that can, that need to be improved, and that's what we're trying to get along. So while the initial human reaction is, wait a second, you're saying I'm doing something wrong. No, we're not. We're just saying, just like we're not experts in human resources, so we can't add guidance there, we can when it comes to retirement plans. So the reality of the phone call and the perception is something that we're hoping to get over a little bit today. Running a retirement plan is a full-time job. Okay, it takes anywhere between 100 to 200 hours a year to run a fully compliant retirement plan. And of course, human resources has nothing else to do throughout the year but run the retirement plan, which of course is another joke because you have a million things to do and it's become the corporate dumping ground. We get that. The staff has unfortunately probably dwindled and the responsibility has probably doubled. So we want to make sure that you understand that there are folks out there who can help assist and help alleviate some of that labor and liability that comes across with running a plan, only because there are so many different moving parts for you. ERISA, again, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, the law that oversees retirement, has a whole bunch of legalese and a bunch of other words in there that can drive people crazy. We get that. So again, we're going to try and see if we can't shed some light on some of the bigger ones that you're going to hear quite often. So on that 5500 form that you file, and in some other cases, you might hear the term party in interest. Well, what is that? Well, that's basically anyone who touches the plan and has any type of interaction with the plan, whether that's the record keeper, the TPA, the advisor, the CPA, the auditor, human resources, finance, the CEO, anyone who's going to have some type of impact on that plan. That's what they have an interest in the plan. And that's why you're going to hear that term. So if you hear the term party in interest, think basically anyone who has any type of impact on the plan or is in part of any part of the decision making. Effective delegation. What does that mean? That means that just you are doing proper outsourcing in terms of you're handing over a responsibility or a liability of the plan to someone else who is qualified to take over that role for you. We're going to get into a little bit of that a little further in the presentation, but that's what you want. When you're delegating here, you want to make sure that you're doing it effectively. So therefore, you're controlling not just the time aspect, but the liability as well. Fiduciary liability in terms of not just from an insurance perspective, but who is a fiduciary and who is liable. So basically anyone who functions in any type of capacity that has to deal with any type of control or discretion with the plan is going to fall into that fiduciary aspect. Again, something that we're going to get into a little bit further down the line in the presentation. A benchmark. Again, here's the term that's been completely beaten up because are you benchmarking your plan? Well, what does that mean? Are you comparing everything in the plan, not just the investments? Are you looking at advisor compensation and administrative compensation, all the things that could cause some issues for you from a plan perspective? Are you taking care of that properly, which we're going to get into in a little bit as well. Fiduciaries, you hear numbers, 321, 338, 316. Jill made mention of that in terms of Andy's role. So just to give some overall guidance in terms of how that fits in, is people say, oh, I have a 321 advisor on the plan. That's like a GPS, okay? So they're helping some guidance, but it's only as good as the information that's coming from that Garmin. You're still responsible because you're still driving the car. So if you don't get to the destination, yes, there's some minimum liability for that GPS, but the ultimate liability still is put on the person who owns and drives that car. So the 338, that was Jill made mention that Andy's team fills. That's part of that effective delegation that I talked about. That has to deal with the investments. When you hear 338, it's going to be the investment portion of the plan, not on the individual level, but on the plan level. Who's choosing the investments that the participants get to choose from? Who's selecting them? Who's monitoring them? Who's putting the investment policy or the written formula in place for why they're still there? And that's what Andy's group does. Removes that liability from the employer, and then they assume it, that they've effectively delegated it to an outsource to someone. So if there is an issue with the investment, it falls on the person that they've hired. When you hear 316, it's become very popular. That's plan administration. So not the record keeper or the TPA, but the internal aspects. The folks internally at HR, payroll, finance, whoever's doing it internally, whether it's making sure contributions get there on time, approving loans and distributions, looking at disclosures, making sure they're proper and accurate in getting out to participants, reviewing and filing of the 5500, just to name a few. So when you hear 316, it's administration. When you hear 328, it relates to the investments. We talk about how plans are paid for in terms of, are they asset-based? Are you using revenue sharing? How does it come? 78% of participants still believe their 401k is free. Why? Because they don't get a bill like that for their homeowner's insurance or your car insurance or things along those lines. When money's taken out of the plan, people don't see it, so they don't think they're paying for it. I've never been a fan of the survey. The survey shouldn't be, do you think it's free? It should be, do you know how your 401k plan is being paid for? And the vast majority don't. So when you use asset-based compensation or revenue sharing where it comes out of the plan, the problem you run into is the money that you perceive to be saving the participant doesn't work out in their benefit. So you have Fund X and it costs a certain amount of money and they're taking a small percentage. In this case, we're going to use the number 35. So they're taking, 25. So they're taking that 25 basis points, which is 1/4 of 1%, which is the symbol for the quarter there. But the actual cost, the drag on the return on the investment is 35 basis points. So if I went to your employees and said, hey, for every quarter, for every 35 cents you give me, I'm going to give you a quarter, They may do it once, but they're not going to do it twice because they're going to realize that they're getting the short end of the stick. So you really want to make sure you're examining how the plan is being paid for and that the costs are in sole and exclusively taking care of the participant. Why does that mean when you use that revenue sharing or that percentage that we talked about as opposed to a flat dollar? Is it affects the savers differently. So I'm a new participant. I just started. I only have $1,000 in the plan. That 25 basis points, or that 1/4 of 1%, $2.50 doesn't make a big difference to me. Okay. Andy has been there a long time. He has $1 million in the plan. That 1/4 of 1%, that's $2,500. Okay. Andy has the same website, same investments, the same advisor. So why is he paying thousands of times more than I am? Because he's been there longer and people are starting to do the math and realize, wait a second, I'm not getting any extra benefit. Why am I paying more? These are usually the C-suite folks, the top salespeople, the longest tenured employees, the folks you want to take care of. So you really want to make sure you're examining how those fee structures are in place to make sure that you're doing it non-discriminatory and taking care of everybody. Why is the asset-based compensation an issue? Because you never stop paying, okay? That 1/4 of 1% comes out of every dollar. When you're doing a flat dollar, you wouldn't pay, just like it says there, you wouldn't pay your lawyer or your accountant. If your CPA walked in and said, you know what, we're not going to charge $450 an hour anymore, we're going to charge a percentage of the revenue the company generates, you're going to fire that CPA before they finish that statement. So you want to make sure that when you're looking at it from a how you're paying the record keeper, how you're paying the TPA, how you're paying the advisor, that you're getting the value in excess of the cost. Because if not, then again, you're violating that sole and exclusive rule where you're supposed to be thinking only of the participant. So again, you want to make sure that if you have an asset-based program where you're not paying a flat dollar for these services, that it's reasonable and they're being protected. So let's see, 11 years ago, 408B2 became law, July of 2012. And the fees needed to be reasonable. So people started doing some benchmarking. The problem is there's two components, all right? It's not just reasonable, it's reasonable and necessary. So if the person is not necessary for the operation of the plan, like the plan cannot operate without that person, then no fee is reasonable. So again, you want to make sure that anyone who's touching the plan is providing that service that is solely and exclusively taking care of the participant and the fact that the plan could not operate without them. And you want to make sure, obviously, that the fees that you're paying them are reasonable. So if you're not prepared or have the time to have that review done, you want to make sure you're outsourcing to an independent firm that's qualified to give you that assessment so that you can show that you have a prudent process in terms of running the plan. Investments. So if there's one thing that you're going to take away from this, it's looking at the investments that you're providing, obviously, because that's the biggest component that participants care about. So these water bottles are exactly the same. They came from the same manufacturer. They came from the same bundle of bottles. They have the same bottle, the same cap, the same water. No one is ever going to buy the one on the right because you can get the one on the left for $1. Well, a lot of investments in plans are using that retail, that $1,000 one, when they very well could have that dollar bottle. So you want to make sure that you're looking at the least expensive share class or the least expensive option of every investment in the plan that's being provided, because that is going to be the biggest drag on costs for the participants. The more they pay, obviously, the less they're going to keep. So you want to make sure that you're reviewing these on a regular, at least semi-annually, if not more, basis to make sure that you have the least expensive option available for the participants. Hey, James, we have a financial advisor, so everything is great. Well, I'm glad you're working with a professional, but just because you're a financial advisor does not make you an ERISA or qualified or 401k plan expert. I'm a financial advisor, okay? I do very little conversations with participants on an individual basis in terms of where to put the money. That's what Andy focuses on. My job is to help protect employers from a plan level. And all we do is retirement plans. So while I'm licensed to give financial advice, it's not something I do on a daily basis because I focus on the retirement plan. So the simplest analogy we use here is the internist and the cardiologist. So your chest is getting tight, you're having trouble breathing, you have that pain shooting up your left arm, who are you calling? Okay, you're not calling the internist, because if you do, they're going to tell you to call 911 or the cardiologist. You're going to call the heart specialist, because those are the folks who are going to help you when that heart attack takes place. So not that your plan is a heart attack, but again, you want to focus on people who are qualified and can help you avoid those issues. And that's why you want to make sure that they have the experience within retirement plans, not just being a financial advisor. Why is that important? Because every year you file a report with the federal government. It's a tax filing. You don't pay any taxes on it, but it's a tax filing just the same, called the 5500. And somebody signs it. Well, they used to sign it. Now you just push a button that says sign here. You don't physically sign the form anymore. But right above that button, it says, under the penalty of perjuries, you're declaring that you've examined this entire report and everything is truthful, accurately, and complete. And the vast majority of people aren't even reading it. And if they are, they don't know what they're reading. You wouldn't file your own taxes that way. So we don't encourage you, obviously, to file your 401k that way. You have to do this every year. So we want to make sure that everything is accurate and correct. So that's why you want to make sure you're working with those professionals who can help protect you and ensure that. You're working with an advisor. Hey, guess what? There are lots of free websites out there. Okay, click it, and in a couple of minutes, you can find out all you want. If you go to the, both Andy and I are registered investment advisors. So therefore, you can literally go to a website, type in James Matthew Holland. My name will come up and it will show you everything I've done for the last 30 years in this space. If I've ever done anything wrong, which thankfully I have not, it will show up there in the form of a disclosure. But if you're going to trust millions of dollars of other people's money to someone, take 5 minutes and do a quick search. The sites are free. You can get all the information you need. Plus, it also shows that you're diligently doing a prudent process in terms of vetting the people who you've hired to help you run this plan and obviously offer guidance to folks. So take a couple of minutes, go to broker check, go to the SEC advisor search website, type in the advisor you're working with's name, and you can get all the information about their professional history. Again, it will show that you've put a diligent, prudent process in place. The government, there are 700,000 retirement plans. There are a couple of hundred people who work there. So do the math. They can't come out and see every plan. So they're going to send out little mailers like the IRS did recently, saying, hey, basically, we're going to ask these 10 questions. And if you provide us the information, great, we'll leave you alone. If not, you've written your own invitation for someone to come in and do a little deeper dive. For anyone who's on the phone who's been to an IRS or DOL exam, I'm sure they're cringing right now because it wasn't obviously the most pleasant of experiences. It's a drag on time. It's a pain in the neck. And so if you can run a compliant plan or have folks who can help you, then you can avoid having to worry about, any issues with governmental agencies popping in to take a deeper dive and ask questions that you just don't need them bothering you with. Lawsuits are a big thing. Again, like I said, there are 700,000 plans out there. So the odds of getting sued are, like winning a lottery ticket. But like we say, it's not a ticket that you want to hold. Class actions have increased dramatically. There have been over 200 already filed in 2023. There'll be 400 filed in 2024. They're mostly on larger plans, but they are coming down market. And sadly, a lot of folks in the small to mid-sized space are not prepared with the proper documentation to show that they're doing it prudently. And the plaintiff's bar is winning 80% of these cases as they run through. Not that we're trying to play the scare tactic or the fear mongering, but reality is what it is. So we just want to make sure folks are prepared. It's very simple. Again, there's a process you can put in place to help ensure and protect you so you're not going to have any issues down the road, but this is something obviously folks need to start taking care of, because literally, not a day goes by where you're not seeing another employer being sued for their retirement plan. So why do we go through all of this? Because it's supposed to be an employee benefit, not an employer burden. Okay. We want folks you take an annual physical every year, right? You go to the doctor to make sure you're healthy. That's all we're saying here. Take an annual physical, go see someone. If you're not comfortable doing it yourself, hire an outside person. And again, you can't go to your current advisor to give you an independent assessment. All right. The joke Andy and I say fairly regularly is, yes, you want to know who the best in the business is? I'll tell you, it's Millennium Investment and Retirement Advisors. There's a credibility issue there because I work at Millennium Investment and Retirement Advisors. So of course, I'm going to say we're the best. You want to look at it from an independent perspective to help yourself. ERISA takes a lot of time. There's a lot of liability. You make sure you have a good team behind you. Why? Because again, you want to make sure your employees are able to retire when they want to. You want people who are working there because they want to, not because they have to. So why do we go through this process, and why is Andy going to share some more information with you? Take a step back. I know I went through this relatively quickly, but we wanted to make sure that we covered all the different areas. But you're about to go on vacation, okay? You just finished your health renewal, you got your PTO taken care of, you got your work from home policies all squared away, and you're sitting at the airport ready to head to Bora Bora for 2 weeks for that well-deserved break. And the TSA guy comes on and says, we'll be boarding in a couple of minutes, but a couple of quick announcements. The first of which, only 25% of the people who board this plane are going to make Bora Bora safely. So of course, you're now taken aback and you're like, wait a second, I don't think I'm getting on that plane. Right now, 25% of participants in 401k plans are on track to retire safely in terms of having enough money to not outlive it and do the things they want to do in that post-work life. So take some time, get engaged, have that review done, make sure you have the proper independent, unconflicted, qualified team working for you, so you don't have those headaches and exposures, and participants can get the most out of their retirement plan, because that's why you're offering it in the first place. And that's why we've gone through the process of sharing with you some of the key areas. And again, I know Andy's going to hit on a few as well, a little more on the individual side, but also the Secure Act. Take the time. There's a lot of responsibility with offering a plan. It's a great thing for people from a retirement perspective, but you want to make sure that it's taking care of the participants solely and exclusively, and then you can avoid all of those issues that I just talked about. So thank you guys for the time this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to share that information with you. I'm going to turn it over to Andy and let him pick it up from here.
Well, let's see. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess let's take a couple of questions if we have for James before we get moved into the participant type side.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask James on the information he shared?
And all of it will be made available. The slides, everything will be made available, as well as obviously the recording that Jill made mention of.
All right. I don't see any open questions.
I don't see anything popping up. So go ahead, Andy. It's all you.
I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. So, are we seeing my screen?
Yes, you just need to start the slideshow.
All right. I'm going to play this video real fast before I do the slideshow. It's kind of a lighthearted little cartoon that explains a little bit about what we look for and how plans are being revamped from where they've been in the past. It's quite enlightening, to see some of the things that you haven't seen or really kind of taken under advisement or been aware of in the past. And well, we'll just go from here and let you see it. So.
Hey everyone, I'd like to introduce you to a disruptor in the retirement plan industry. His name is Andy. Andy and his team of independent retirement plan specialists are working to transform the way 401ks and retirement plans are being managed.
Like you, your retirement plan needs an annual physical to make sure it's healthy.
Some 401k plans today are developed from cookie-cutter templates, a one-size-fits-all approach. You, your employees, and your business are unique and deserve a plan tailored to your unique objectives.
During the independent checkup, our team will look hard to find fees, excessive costs, and whether or not the investments being offered are right for your people. More simply put, we do not offer a retirement plan. We provide a retirement solution. The truth is, you can have independent, conflict-free fiduciary specialists at entry level now. You can benefit from a team of trusted experts like ours.
Running a 401k can be a full-time job. Whether it's very complex compliance situations or daily tasks, you can now outsource them to Andy's team of experts. Through one of the nation's first comprehensive 401, 403b compliance evaluation tools, Andy will evaluate the compliance and performance of your retirement plan, then show you how to reduce company and personal liabilities, increase compliance, reduce the ongoing plan costs.
Our process enlightens, educates, and alleviates the challenges of overseeing your retirement plan while striving to reduce the cost to you and plan participants, allowing you to focus on other aspects of your business while helping employees reach their retirement goals. We will be your last call.
So there you have it, just a little quick video that shows some of the things that we're looking for inside of the plan and what's now moving into the new style and best practices for setting up a plan. Let's see here. Hitting the wrong one here. Oh. Sorry, guys. I haven't done this in a little bit with the, it's usually been had with someone that's controlling it. I'm just going to continue this way. So what I wanted to bring up is there's been so much change in the industry on how to run a plan effectively, what is deemed appropriate and what's not. And with that has come a lot of search for specialists. And one thing that James, said is that you can now outsource to effectively delegate these things to folks that are specialists in those areas. And so we talked about the 338-316. We'll get to that in a little bit, but a lot of plan sponsors are looking to do that and decrease their liabilities in the plans. And I think that the statistic was 47% last year right there of plan sponsors are thinking about switching to a new advisor. And a lot of that has to do with, are they a specialist in the industry? Are they on site? Do they make efforts to talk with the participants inside the plan? Have you seen your advisor in, several years? Sometimes that's not the case. So what we want to do is just go over some of the best practices that we see in the industry today. We're also going to get into Secure 2.0 and then how that might affect your plan moving forward and some of the things to consider for the participants when you're looking at some of these mandates from the Secure 2.0. So what we're looking at here is on an independent side. Most folks are used to what we call a bundled approach. And so the bundled approach is going to be done with, a high institution, a big institution or an insurance company. Like I'm just going to spit out some names like Wells Fargo or John Hancock or Principal, and everything's kind of bundled into one package where they do everything, the investments, the administration, the record keeping, all of that is on one under one purview in one company. What they found now is that it does pay to do that effective delegation to people that are experts in the field. And so this is just an example of that, where you have the investment manager, which would be my firm, and with Capital Investment Advisory Services, we're a nationwide RIA that specializes in some retirement planning. And Millennium here, Mira, that would be James and his group. They do what I call them is bubble wrap for the plan sponsor. They effectively take the liabilities from the company on making some of those compliance decisions or compliance aspects of the plan, and then also making sure that things are filed in a timely fashion and they keep the plan within compliance. So then you obviously have the custodian, which is where the money is held, and then your third party record keeper and your administrator. So now you can you can unbundle it and have experts at every level. One thing that we went through a little bit is that number soup that James had on his slides on the 316, 338, and 321. The highest level of fiduciary oversight for your plan is going to be by combining this 338 and the 316. And just to reiterate, because I'm throwing, terms out that you guys don't hear a lot, the 338 is the investment management firm. That's going to be for the participants. They're overseeing those aspects of the investments and the cost structure and all of that inside the plan regarding the investments. And that's actually what impacts retirement success to a greater deal than some of the other things that are some of the other aspects within a plan. And we can get into that here in a little bit. The 316 is going to be the fiduciary oversight for the plan sponsor. So what we have here is this is the protection for the company itself and the people who touch and decide on what plan and plan features are going to be there. And then this 338 is going to be the protections for the participants. And so by combining both of these, you get a suite that really is really effective and will help both company and participant within the plan. Now, one of the things here we want to focus on inside of the plans, and that's one of the F's, and that's fees. And so a large portion of the fees that are inside of a plan are sometimes things that people don't consider when they're selecting their investments, et cetera. And that's why you wanted to have, 338 to help you do that. And so there are internal investment costs associated with funds. And when you can eliminate, or you can't really eliminate, but when you can reduce those fees inside of the investments that are offered inside the plan, it's immediate dollars back into the participant's pocket, because that's essentially who is paying that cost. And what that does is impacts, the returns and the growth of their individual account. Now, the reason that we talk to, the reason I bring this up is it's more of a macro conversation, that when you think about it in terms of, okay, we had that 2008, 2009 recession. And so for HR people and for companies that were involved, what ended up happening is, because of the impacts to 401k plans, people had to work longer, on an average of 5 to 7 years. And what that does is kind of log jams your highest paid employees who are longer tenured, that were ready to retire but now can't. So you're missing out on the new talent and those type of things. So you can see the kind of trickle down effect that can happen inside of a company and inside of a retirement plan that isn't run effectively. So when we talk about that, we're just talking about adding years on to people's employment career. And we want to get them to a successful outcome, and really by focusing on some of those internal costs that they don't know are there is a way to help get them to where they need to go. I'll skip over this. When we talk, a little bit about fees, again, there are ways that there's options out there now that weren't there previously because of the advancements of technology. And there's not a lot of paper pushing within 401k plans now. So if you have a plan that, is a little, may have been in place for a while, and they're still kind of using paper to change beneficiaries and affect transactions on participants' accounts, you can now go out there and find vendors that don't have fees on certain things. And this is actually transactional type individual fees to charge to the participant. There are ways now, like the benchmark or what's normal out there. You've got things, let's say someone was divorced and you need to get a quadro out there for their spouse or something. That would normally cost $400 to $450, $500. Now there's people out there that will do all of these things for no cost. And so taking a look at those things and the benefits to the participants in the plan is something that really should be a priority at this point, because there are offerings out there from vendors that will allow this. And in terms of plan fees that's charged to the employer, termination fees, meaning you're moving your plan somewhere else. There's typically a termination fee attached to that. A lot of times they'll waive that if you can, get that done. But I think a lot of folks that are on the call, if you're involved in the plan, this restatement fee, that was actually something that you guys just went through within the last, I want to say 18 months or so, 18 to 24 months. Everyone had to restate their plan here recently. And that was a cost that really is just there because it's there. No one has challenged these until recently as far as what is supposed to be involved in the plan and why is it there. It's only because it's been allowed to be there and hasn't been challenged. So moving towards Secure 2.0, this was about a 1,400 page bill that had 90 different provisions that were going to be put out there for retirement. Now, I do like this Secure Act 2.0. There's a lot of good things in here. The thing that we need to be aware of is that there are some gray areas that are still not really clarified for the employer and or the participant. So we're going to go through some of that here right now. Is there any questions as we looking at this right yet? No? I don't see anything. So this one is the one that's really going to affect the plan and the plan costs to the company, because the automatic enrollment and escalation is going to, mandates that everyone that's eligible for the plan gets enrolled. Now you will be able to have that person select being to not participate. But what we found is like 93% of the people that are automatically enrolled stay in the plan. And that's really what this provision is about, to get them to retirement, to help them save for retirement and have that participation level inside the plans go up. So this will go into effect January 1, 2025, but you're really going to want to look at what is your match schedule, what is when they are automatically enrolled, what level of automatic enrollment do you want to have? You can set that to be between 3 and 10%. And that is going to be a cost to the company. Now it is an expense, so something that can be offset, but this is going to be something that folks want to be aware of, especially if you're in a larger company, that number goes up. So requires 401ks to automatically escalate contributions at 1% per year to at least 10%. This is also something that they can, decide not to do, but it's going to be automatically done for them upon their enrollment. So this is really good. It's something that is going to help them continue with the pace of their growth inside their career, where if the cost of inflation or cost of or their earnings growth, they're going to be able to automatically increase what they're saving. Enhanced tax credits, this is for startup plans. I don't know if anyone on here is dealing with the startup plan, and now actually I'm in Virginia, so now there's actually a retirement a state mandate on retirement plans for companies that are 25 plus employees. And that's actually coming down the pike really quick. There's a letter that's going to go out on June 20th to all of these employers that say, hey, we need you to verify that you have a plan. If you've got 25 or more employees, you need to have a plan in place, either the one they're going to offer through the state or through, private industry by February of 2024, which is kind of crazy. Now, you guys are in Maryland. Maryland also has a state mandate, but I don't believe there was any employee count provisions on that. So, but in any case, there is some tax credits for small employer plans that are startups. Let's skip through this one. So this one has a little bit of a gray area also on how it might be available to the participants and what that means for the companies. So now you're going to be able to do match contributions in Roth. And the gray area is, well, how is that going to be handled on the tax basis side, for the company itself or for the participant? Is that going to be counted as W-2 income? Because remember, Roth is an after-tax contribution type, and you can't exactly have a vesting schedule on something that's already been taxed. So that's another piece that needs to be looked at as far as Roth contributions. They would need to be immediately invested. And I do like the idea of it. I think it's really good to have Roth matching, but the IRS needs to clarify on how the employers are going to handle that. So, but know that's coming and that's available. So the effective date of that is, this past December when the bill was passed. Incentives for employees to contribute. This is something that's come up in the past on how do we drive participation. Up until 2025, there's a way to drive participation. And what they've done is said, hey, now you can offer, small gift cards or employee incentives to enroll in the 401k plan. So if that's something that you think you need to do within the company and try to drive participation up until we get to 2025, this would be a good way to do it. I've actually had a company that does some sort of, they have like a company store, or they get credits for things they can buy in the company store. And if they enroll into the plan, as long as there's a dollar value associated with a credit or something like that, you can do that and implement that into the incentives for the employees to contribute. One thing I want to show you is, I'm going to switch over to a PDF here, is think about how some of these things might impact your payroll provider and who you might be using and what their abilities might be at this point in time. So what we've got is, I'm trying to get this larger here. Here's some of the provisions, and I mentioned how this plan has 90 provisions, but some of the ones that kind of come top to mind when you're looking at payroll providers and how you integrate and all of the information that's being, whether you're 180 or 360 integration with your payroll provider, or if they even offer integration. So one thing that I believe is that the antiquated, smaller payroll providers are probably going to get phased out. And so there's some, big time players out there that already have this kind of in their pipeline that's easier for them on a technology side to implement some of these provisions. So definitely have that on the top of mind, as is your current payroll provider going to be able to do what they need to do. This one's interesting here. The forced Roth catch-ups for those earning more than 145,000. There is some talk about having this adjusted to not be Roth. So there's still not full clarity on what this one looks like, but it is something that is in the original bill that hasn't been changed yet. And, I wrote there, I think that the Secure 2.0 is the proverbial nail in the coffin for antiquated in-house payroll systems. What is your vesting schedule? Again, that goes to the Roth. Vesting schedules aren't really, if you're in a high turnover type industry, maybe you do that. But I think it's kind of a detractor to a plan. Don't really believe they're necessary anymore. Typically what you see is a 5-year, 20% each year. And that's what a lot of companies are doing now, is if they have a profit share, they'll put a vesting schedule on the profit share and take the vesting schedule off of the match schedule. And so that helps the employee a little bit more, not get some of their retirement savings that's been offered as a benefit taken back from them. Now, if you're not allowing Roth deferrals inside your plan now, this is typically something that is in every plan that gets going moving forward. I would suggest if you don't have it, I would add Roth deferrals to your plan. And really just as on a financial planning side, when the participant gets to retirement, I really like my clients to have options when they get to that eventual retirement. And, you know, would you want to have the option to have the choice of not being able to pay taxes on your withdrawal or paying taxes? I think you want to have both. Someone asked the question, when the slides are sent out, can this attachment reference be provided? Yes, I'll send these off also. No problem. I got a couple more here we're going to look at as well. Now, one thing that I would say is definitely ask your employees, poll your employees, poll the participants in the plan. What are they looking for? You know, one of the big ones that's come out is the student loan match. That's available. A lot of people want it, but you know, what does it look like? How is it going to be managed? And I think James talked a little bit about it on another call we were on. The way, the burden of proof, who's that on? There's new providers now. I think that he mentioned. Do you want to jump in, James, and talk about that for a second? Are you on? He's muted. But there are now providers that will go in and do that service for you. Really, it's not really a liability concern for the employer where it had been in the past, but they need to verify, you know, what type of loan is it, that type of thing. So which ones qualify, which ones don't, all those things. But that is something that is definitely going to need to be looked at. You're going to hear questions from your participants on, can we offer this? And what I'll say is I equivocate the 401k plan to like Mr. Potato Head. And so Mr. Potato Head has attachments, and some of them are optional, some of them are required. The student loan match is a eyebrow or an ear or the glasses. It's an attachment. You can allow it or you can't. So it's not like it's a something that you have to do. But I think it's a really good attractive tool for new talent or that high level talent that might have master's, you know, loans, that type of thing. Do you have automatic enrollment? The mandate says 2025, but I would look at doing it already. There's been a significant increase in plans that are doing this off the cuff or have implemented this just because of trying to get the participation levels up, etc. And if you haven't considered a complementary plan, meaning like a non-qualified plan, etc., maybe you want to do that if you've got some high income earners, or your company is built around a lot of high income earners. And then how are you going to educate your employees on the changes? You know, what you need to do is ask your providers to have someone come in and talk about it to them. You know, do a webinar for the company, or look to your advisor to come in and do some chat sessions with the participants. And if you don't have someone that does that, just you know, reach out to the folks that do. I'd be amiss if our disclaimer that we do that as well. So just reach out to us. We can come in and talk to the participants on what the plan looks like and some of the things that are happening. Questions. Here's a couple of others that we didn't look at. Let's see. So that student loan provision that we're talking about is 2024. Something that is interesting that's out there that's in this provision, it doesn't really do with retirement plans per se, but if you've got a 529 and your kid or you didn't use it, they're now allowing you to roll that over to your Roth IRA with a lifetime limit of 35,000. I hope that goes up, but that is something that will come into 2024. That's a planning tool for folks. And let's see. "2025 is kind of the big year for most of these with the automatic enrollment and the automatic escalation. Look at some of these too. This is kind of something that I'll bring up. In the past, simple IRAs and 401ks, there was a hard deadline of December 31st / January 1st. If you wanted to end your simple plan and move to a 401k, you can now actually do that during the year and not have to worry about that hard deadline. So you used to not be able to have two plans during a same year, but they're waiving that now, and you're able to transition from a simple to a 401k at any time during the year. That's new as well. Also waives the 2-year rollover limit, meaning one of the frustrating things for financial advisors was once you close a simple plan down and someone had just started into that plan, they had just been hired, maybe October, November, they started into the plan, they had a little bit of a balance. They had to wait 2 years before they were able to roll that money into another IRA or into another plan. That was just a terrible rule, and so that's been eliminated also. The RMD age has been increased to 73. So if you have people that are still working in your companies at 70, it's been increased now to 73, and it'll continue to increase all the way up to 2033 at 75. So there's stepping stones here. At 2029, it'll go to 74. 2033, it'll go 75. In January in 2025, the catch-up limits for folks that are 60 to 63 are now going to go to $10,000. So, a lot of ways to help people get to retirement were included in this bill. I believe it is a good bill. It does need a couple of things to be clarified, but it's really going to help the participants get to where they need to go, and then allow the employers to use some nice options to attract talent. So that's pretty much it for what I was going to look to show you folks. Is there any questions out there? James, you got anything you want to add to any of this? No? Went through that kind of quickly. I know we were slotted to an hour time frame, so I didn't go too deep into the different levels of vendor and cost structure inside of a plan, but there's a lot to slice and dice there. Ways to eliminate intrinsic costs and things that will help participants get to more successful retirement sooner and not have that logjam of late tenured employees earning huge salaries, stuck within the companies and can't retire. So that being said, this is my contact card here. Any questions that may come up on Secure 2.0 or the state mandates, or how to implement best practices into your current plan, just let me know. I'm happy to help.
Yes, thank you for having us.
All right. Well, thank you both, Andy and James, for your great presentation and for an informative webinar.
Great. No, again, thanks for making some time. Appreciate everything, Jill, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. So to attendees, we will be sending a recording of today's webinar to those who attended the session. We will also send an email with the recertification IDs and a brief survey. So this concludes today's presentation. We look forward to seeing you in September for our in-person and virtual events. Have a great summer.